You are listening to Leading the Factory Forward with your host, Lynn Friest. We share interviews with manufacturing experts and strategies for embracing the digital future, recruiting a new workforce, finding new business. Lynn is an advanced manufacturing strategist and leadership consultant who is on a mission to show manufacturing leaders how to improve their current operations while preparing for a digital future. And here's your host, Lynn Friest.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Leading the Factory Forward. This is episode number 50, titled Building Your Teams and Accelerating Out of the Shutdown. Again, our goal is to help you create a compelling future for yourself, your teams, and your organization. And I'd like to encourage you to visit my website and download the summary at the bottom of the podcast episode and use that as a tool to capture notes as you start your exploration of this episode's concepts. Or, to help you get started on your journey in general and to stay up to date on new episodes, download the free worksheet, 3 steps you need for a more productive workday. Now, in this episode, we'll explore what Google found out about creating high-performing teams in what they called their Project Aristotle. And again, our intent in sharing this with you is to join with me in exploring some great ideas on how you can engage with your teams to be accelerating and not hesitating as you create your new future. So Google found out, and they did very deep and extensive research, but they discovered 5 key elements of high-performing teams. And one of those key elements, probably the primary one, is psychological safety. And it also has 5 additional supporting success factors. So thinking in general about Google's Project Aristotle, there are a couple things they found out weren't key factors as far as high-performing teams go. 1, teams did not have to be co-located. 2, teams did not have to have a consensus all the time. And in fact, often that wasn't useful. They also didn't have to be composed of all experts. In fact, again, a variety of people, styles, and viewpoints was very useful. And finally, the teams didn't all have to be extroverts. They did not have to all be outgoing people. Again, powerful teams had some other aspects to them, but these weren't the key ones. But the first one was psychological safety. In other words, did team members feel safe? And that amounted to, did they feel safe to both give and receive feedback from each other and from you as a team leader? And then were that safe for them to share a variety of ideas? In other words, could they have differing ideas that they shared? So those are the things, and we'll go into those in more depth in a few minutes. Now, moving on to the second factor for high-performing teams was dependability. And this kind of revolved around, I'll say, visibility in one sense. In other words, was work status visible? Did everybody kind of know where things were, where they were, and where everyone was at? Were there clear owners for work tasks? So everybody knew who was going to be doing what when. That sense of we kind of know where we're at and who's moving us ahead. And then obviously, were team members willing to continuously share their status? So if things were going well, great. But if they were running into issues, were they willing to share that too? So other team members might be able to help, or they could look at whether they need to rescope their project in some fashion. The next success factor was structure and clarity. In terms of clarity, do all team members know what the goals are? Do we really know what the purpose of this project is? They all may be working on separate pieces of it, but do they really know the overall goal and purpose of this project? And then in terms of structure, do team members have autonomy and ownership and clear definitions of what their responsibilities are and what other responsibilities? So again, did we have a way to put a framework around whatever it is that we're working on, even though we may be at least working independently a fair share of the time? Then the next piece had to do with meaning. And that's important to people because it helps them come through the tough times, or it gives them energy to keep moving ahead. So meaning is, do they get fulfillment from their work? Does their work match their strengths and skills? And are they learning and developing? So in other words, it's not just about the work, but it's about the people doing the work. If there's a mismatch between their particular skills and the piece of work that needs to be done, how can we modify that? Or, maybe switch up who's doing what piece of work? People like a sense of satisfaction. I think, especially in today's world, everyone wants to feel they're developing as an individual as well as developing for the success of their organization. So are they learning new things? Is there an opportunity for them to work on that project and grow as an individual? All those things, again, help them engage with what's the meaning of the project, both to them and to the organization. And then, in the end, impact. Is this project going to make a difference? And do they understand what the impact is? Often, if you're working a small piece of it, you may not really yet have a good picture of what the end result's going to be. And it could be in terms of impact. Sometimes as we set goals or we set milestones or whatever, we have too many. The impact is, well, we're going to do these 20 things. Well, no, we need to be concise and have clarity around this is the singular impact that this project is going to have. People also like to feel that there's some higher purpose. We're just not doing this to finish a marketing campaign, but we're doing this because this will allow us to explain how our product can be useful to the people that might want to buy it. And then as you talk about this whole idea of impact, it's not only just the impact on the company or the organization or the project, but the impact on people. So we have to always, as we go through these things, and often there's going to be a sprint, there's going to be deadlines, there's going to be things where we really have to put our shoulder to the wheel, as it were. But we have to be concerned about burnout and the well-being of the people. So again, as a leader, you need to step back and take a look at, okay, am I running my team into the ground, or are we really just moving forward through an exciting phase of getting this done? Now, for a minute, I'd like to turn back to that idea of psychological safety. And again, I think of this in terms of, a good friend of mine once said, with people working in organizations, everyone's a little bit scared and a whole lot proud. And by that, he basically meant, everybody is worried that whatever they share may not be accepted well by the group. But on the other hand, whatever they feel they have to share, they're proud of that opinion, that piece of work, whatever that may be. So this whole idea is, can we have an environment where people are willing to share, even though they may be uncertain of their idea, but it's their idea and they're probably somewhat proud of it. Another quote from a friend and mentor, and he used this to begin all of his meetings. And he said, is there anything at all about which you are curious, wondering, anxious, or concerned about? Again, just an idea of how can we surface anything that's sitting out there that might impact our meeting. So if people are worried about something that may not be relevant at this meeting, or if they're concerned about something, can we surface those things so they don't sabotage the rest of the meeting? So the idea of how can we surface things that may be in the background, you might say, but nonetheless affecting your participation or how well you can perform in this meeting. Then getting to the specific things that they found in Project Aristotle, the first one was demonstrate engagement. So in terms of engagement, you want to be present and focus on the conversation. In other words, we're not multitasking with laptops and stuff like that. You also want to have your questions, be sure you're attempting to learn from people, not just sharing your opinion or your ideas. And you want it to be interactive. So in other words, it's not long monologues. You should have some back and forth as you go through this. And you need to verbally respond. You can't sit there silently as a leader in the meeting. None of your teammates should either. And then throughout this whole theme, be mindful of your body language and your facial expressions and how you're actually there. If you're looking at the ceiling or if you're looking at your phone, all these things, people take a lot away from them, whether or not you really mean them. The second piece is to show understanding. And some of this gets to be very explicit where you need to confirm that there's a mutual understanding and alignment. And you may want to restate someone's opinion or the group's what you understand to be the group's consensus on this or not, but it helps to get some clarity because occasionally we think we agree when in fact that may not be the case. You also want to validate comments, saying, I agree with you on what you've said, or maybe you want to say, I have a slightly different perspective on that. As you give your perspectives, you don't want to place blame. This isn't about a blaming and shaming activity. You don't want to say, well, that was the dumbest idea I ever heard. You want to say, I understand what you're saying. I have a different opinion of it, or here's my perspective on it. And again, as I mentioned before, your facial expressions, how you say something is very powerful. So if at all possible, try to share your opinions, especially if there's a significant disagreement in opinions. Try to remain neutral. Think mentally as if the two of you may be standing side by side looking at the problem, not you're looking across the table and, in a sense, fighting about the problem. The next one is talking about being inclusive when you're in these team meetings or interpersonal settings. And just in general, people want to feel that you're accessible. And likewise, they want to feel that way about their teammates. The other thing you can think about here is share with your teammates and encourage them to share with each other what's their style of work. I've often heard of teams going through the DISC assessment. Again, just showing some different interests or styles or different ways in which they work. Somebody may say, I really like to read something and then respond to it at a later time. Or somebody else may say, I figure these things out by literally talking out loud about them. So there may be different styles, and you can't necessarily accommodate everyone all the time, but it helps if everyone's at least understands what the different styles are. Another thing you as a leader can do, and you want your team to do also, is express gratitude. Thank people for their contributions. And I think another thing to do is, on the flip side of that, is call people out if they're negative or if they're blaming someone or if they're downplaying someone else's ideas. Remind everybody, we're here to share ideas. We may not agree all the time, but we will be civil and understanding of each person's position. And then finally, build a rapport. Some of this, and I've heard this is coming up a lot in our Zoom sessions and remote work, but have some time in there for people just to say how they're doing, what's happening in their lives. Especially when we're not in the same office in many cases, we're all experiencing different things when we're working from home. This whole idea of spending some time just sharing where everybody's at, what's going on, especially in these uncertain times, I think just helps reset us all along with the work to just where we're at. The fourth item in a powerful team is to be inclusive in decision-making. So again, maybe you as the leader will have to make the decision. Hopefully, as a team, you can have more or less, whether it be a consensus or at least an understanding of a decision. So in the end, may have to say, this is what I've decided, but you can also explain your reasoning behind it, helping people understand this is the way I chose to make the decision over these two options or three options, whatever it may be. And at the same time, while you may have made the final decision, acknowledge the input from others, saying, well, thank you. I appreciate your input on this. You helped me rethink a little bit. I didn't in the end take your position on it. But those are the kinds of things that let people know they've been heard, even if they haven't been agreed with. And in the end, if you're called upon as the leader, have confidence and conviction. And yet you don't want to be inflexible in these things. You want to be able to represent the team, maybe in some cases represent that there was a diverse set of ideas around some project or a thing that your team did. And within the team, you want to encourage that diversity of thinking, encourage that creative tension that can be very useful. And yet you have to, of course, manage that so it doesn't get out of hand, but it remains constructive rather than a destructive type of tension in your ideas. And then also, again, while the decision-making has to be moved forward, acknowledge people for where they are, where they're going, encourage them to continue to take risks, to share their diverse opinions. You don't want one decision to shut them down with respect to putting ideas in the future. So acknowledge their contribution and what they're doing. Again, we want them to keep weighing in with their ideas and their diverse perspectives. So those are sort of the 5 things that Google found in their Project Aristotle about psychological safety. And there are many other books and resources that even Google found that talk about this. But the whole idea is the ability for people to feel safe, both to contribute and to share different opinions, because we do need a wide variety of perspectives, especially in this uncertain time. We just need more and more perspectives because whoever has, quote, the right answer yesterday literally may not be the right answer today because the world or the environment has changed around us. Now, one final thing that they kind of mentioned in the Project Aristotle work is it seemed that teams also were high-performing when the team members had an equal opportunity to speak. It wasn't that everybody timed out how much time they spoke, but they had equal opportunity, so they could be heard. And again, that may be up to you as a leader of a team. If you see that people haven't been participating for whatever reason, at least offer them the opportunity to join in the conversation. Because it is to really feel inclusive in a team, people have to at least been given the opportunity to share their input. And they may be shy, they may think their ideas are not worthwhile in this case, but they've been given the opportunity and encouraged to participate. So that kind of wraps up what we were talking about here for Google's research into how to build teams. And then again, how you can use this in this time to really create and help your team develop itself. And in a sense, you're going to be accelerating out of this problem or these times rather than hesitating and being stuck. I think these are some great ideas to help you build forward momentum with your team, even given the very uncertain times we have. And again, I encourage you to visit my website and download the summary of this episode and use it as a tool as you capture notes and maybe work on these things with your team. And now briefly, just some thoughts for you as a leader. And I've done this in some earlier podcasts, but I just wanted to remind you of 6 ideas that we've talked about in the past as a leader, things that you can consider. Now, you might pick out 1 or 2 of these and literally just score yourself every day, maybe on a couple of them. And it could be very simple. You might say, I'm going to mark yourself with a plus for that day if you thought you exhibited that idea. Maybe a circle if, you just didn't see it one way or the other. Or as a minus if you thought you really kind of didn't do a good job on that idea. So the 6 ideas are agility, your ability to rethink your assumptions and look at new reality. Again, agility, a key thing we're looking at here today, given our times. Resilience. What's your backup plan, your recovery plan? Have you thought about some scenarios? And this isn't about worrying. This is about, okay, what are the things that might happen? Or what are the questions that we may need to answer? And we're going to talk about this in one of the upcoming episodes in a lot more detail. But again, this idea of, have you at least considered a couple of the options that you may need to address? Or, like I said, what are the key questions you might have to answer since you don't know what's going to happen next? Then process. You want defined work. It helps provide quality. It helps provide focus. It's just that in these times, you can't be too stuck in your defined work. You have to have some flexibility. Again, this is also going to be a topic in one of our next podcasts. Inspirational leadership. Are you checking in with your team? Are you supporting them? Are you helping them overcome, whatever difficulties or I'll say mindset challenges or even actual challenges that they may be happening? How are you helping them move ahead? And a positive outlook. While there are not yet certain answers in many of our times, are you thinking about your team's strengths and talents and helping them understand that we can figure this out? And then finally, achievement orientation. Are you asking your teams to commit to moving forward and asking them to set milestones and goals? And again, these may have to change because circumstances, are changing around them. And maybe while you still have a long-term target, you may be asking them to set small goals or milestones that you can do, the next day, the next week. And then you may have to step back and reassess where we're at, a week from now, as opposed to saying, hey, we've got it all mapped out for the next 6 months, because it's likely you truly don't have that much of a vision going that far ahead. But again, what are the things that we can have people commit to, even making small steps or daily steps or weekly steps? And then finally, I'd like to just kind of revisit the concept of psychological safety from your perspective as a leader. I'd like you to think of holding a mindset of being curious. It's easy as leaders to be maybe more uptight. We're under stress too. We don't know what's coming next. But again, if we hold this mindset of being curious, I think that can be very helpful. And then listen with your full attention and without judging as people, because there may be times where people are upset. They can almost be unreasonable. But if you can listen with full attention and not a judgmental attitude, 1, you can hear them, and 2, you can let them know that they're being heard. And that can make all the difference in the world. It could be in the end, whatever has them upset, you can't do anything about. But you will be able to at least let them know they've been heard. And it's very likely that they will either be able to or can sort things out for themselves. And all you really have to do is listen. And this final thing, which I've said again in earlier episodes, is the phrase from the African culture is, I see you. Really means that you have an attention and a focus on the person you're talking to. So whoever you're interacting with, and it could be your whole team, but it could be individuals, really have that mindset of, I see you, I'm giving you my full attention and my full focus in this moment. And so that, again, can be very important, especially to people in these times where they're feeling distracted, fearful, and worrying. Thank you for this, and I hope it's been useful to you. And I just wanted to let you know, coming up next, I'm going to start doing a mix of solo episodes, which is what I've done so far in my show. But I'm also doing interviews with experts. Now, some will be in manufacturing, but some are experts in other areas that can help you build your business in different ways, providing you with new, often virtual resources or concepts that can help you not just in a manufacturing sense, but just in a business sense and help you as a leader. So finally, I once again encourage you to visit my website, download the summary of the podcast episode and use it as your guide. And then to help you get started on your journey and stay up to date on new episodes, download the free worksheet, 3 steps you need for a more productive workday. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.